What would you do if you woke up to find this text from your teenager? Mom, help. That's exactly what happened to Bridget Peltier on August 1st, 2025. But by the time she saw those two desperate words, her 18-year-old son, Giovani, had already disappeared into the Florida darkness with 3 cousins he'd never met before. 8 days later, his body would be found floating in a retention pond. The medical examiner found no signs of foul play, but the family isn't buying it, because the more you dig into what happened that night, the more nothing makes sense. I'm Juju Bean, and this case has everything that should terrify parents. Family you think you can trust, a teenager trying to do the right thing, and a timeline that's falling apart under scrutiny. What really happened to Giovani Peltier? And why are the people who saw him last telling different stories to the police than they told his family? Here's what keeps me up at night about cases like this: how quickly everything can go wrong when we think our kids are safe. Giovani wasn't some runaway teen or a troubled kid making bad decisions. He was an 18-year-old trying to reconnect with family he'd never met. And in one night, that innocent desire turned deadly. So before we dive into this timeline, I need you to think about this. When was the last time you talked to your kids about what to do if they felt unsafe with people they don't know well? Even family they've never met? Because what happened to Giovani could happen to anyone. Giovani Peltier was just 4 years old when his world changed. Living in Florida at the time, he became estranged from his father's side of the family and moved to North Carolina with his mother, Bridget. For 14 years, he grew up knowing only half his heritage, his mother's Italian and Puerto Rican roots, while his African-American father's family remained a mystery. But when Giovani turned 18 in April 2025, something shifted. Maybe it was becoming an adult, maybe it was that natural curiosity we all have about our origins. Whatever it was, Giovani decided he wanted to know his paternal relatives. He wanted to connect with that missing piece of his identity. So when the family planned a vacation to Englewood, Florida, on the western side of the state, south of Tampa, it seemed like the perfect opportunity. Giovani had even joined a group chat with some of the paternal cousins he'd never met. 3 cousins who were about to play a central role in this tragedy. Here's where the story gets complicated, because it spans multiple counties and involves so many different people and agencies that even seasoned investigators struggled to piece it together. August 1st, 2025, 1:30 a.m. Those 3 paternal cousins, whose ages we still don't know, picked up Giovani from Englewood. They were supposedly headed to Mims, which is on the complete opposite side of Florida, several hours away. Why they needed to pick him up in the middle of the night for this trip has never been adequately explained. But here's what we know happened next, and it's where this case takes a dark turn. According to what Bridget Peltier later told People magazine, the cousins and Giovani smoked marijuana together after the pickup.
Our agency has been involved. We were reached out for by the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office asked to go interview the 3 young men that were over in their county that had picked Giovani up. We sent, when they first called, it was August 1st, and our deputies went out, talked to one of the individuals, conveyed back to Charlotte County what information they had developed. The following day, information started to spread on social media, misinformation, I should say. A lot of it was spread on social media, and Charlotte County asked us to go out and check on a car that had, according to what was being said on social media, had been part of this. The car was at a salvage yard. Our team went out, and the car was not part of this. It had completely no connection to this. In fact, everything that we could tell from looking at the vehicle, it hadn't moved in a substantial amount of time. The brake pads were all rusted. Everything, the car had not moved. So, but as part of our assistance with them, as part of us offering any resources to them we could, we actually sent agents to go interview the 3 young men. We've not only interviewed them, we've interviewed other members of the family. We've also recovered the actual vehicle that was that the boys were driving, and that vehicle, the family gave it to us, said, take it, do whatever you need to do with it. We did. We took it, and we had our crime scene team go through it and reported back to Charlotte County that there was no evidence of any type of wrongdoing that was part of it. So, as you guys have probably seen in some of the stuff going on, some of the news reports, Some of his items, a backpack, a school bag, and a telephone were found on the interstate over in Manatee County, I believe it was, but there's nothing to indicate he ever came to Brevard County. In fact, just the opposite from the witness statements that we've had and any evidence that Charlotte County's been able to collect.
Then, according to their version of events, Giovani became paranoid and started to panic. The situation escalated until Giovani was allegedly cursing at his cousins and even threatening them with a knife during what they described as a roadside confrontation. But here's where the stories don't match up. Charlotte County deputies, who launched the initial search, said Giovani simply began acting erratically before exiting the vehicle and walking away near State Road 70. That's very different from the knife-threatening, curse-filled confrontation the family heard about. So which story is true? And why are there already discrepancies in something this serious? Sometime during this chaos, Giovani managed to send those haunting messages. "Mom, help," he said to his mother. Similar pleas went to his grandfather and aunt when he couldn't reach Bridget. He even attempted a FaceTime call that went unanswered because his mother was asleep. Think about that moment. Giovani is somewhere in the Florida darkness, scared enough to reach out to multiple family members, and nobody sees his messages in time to help. When Bridget woke up and saw those messages, she immediately used the GPS on Giovani's phone to track him down. But all she found was his backpack with his phone inside, abandoned near State Road 70 and I-75, exactly where the cousins said they left him. "My son eats, sleeps, showers, breathes his phone," Bridget told People magazine. "He never would have left it behind." That detail haunts me, because she's right. What 18-year-old willingly abandons their phone, especially when they're scared and trying to get help? For more than a week, search teams scoured multiple counties. Giovani's family put up a $10,000 reward that eventually increased to $25,000. Professional search teams, volunteers, helicopters, search dogs, everyone was looking for this young man. According to Sheriff Wayne Ivey of Brevard County, misinformation started spreading on social media almost immediately.
The following day, information started to spread on social media. Misinformation, I should say, a lot of it was spread on social media. And
people were claiming they'd seen cars connected to the case in salvage yards. Search teams were being sent to the wrong counties based on false tips. Sheriff Ivey had to hold a press conference just to set the record straight. "The car was at a salvage yard, our team went out, and the car was not part of this. It had no connection to this. In fact, everything that we could tell from looking at the vehicle, it hadn't moved in a substantial amount of time. The brake pads were all rusted." Here's where this case gets really interesting from an investigative standpoint. Private search teams like We Are the Essentials, a group of former law enforcement officers and military service members, got involved when the family reached out through social media. Billy Lane, a criminal defense investigator and founding member of the group, explained their methodology in a way that shows you just how complex the search really was.
Thanks for having us. So we have a big social media platform with our local nonprofit in Tampa Bay. And typically what will happen is when a case of this magnitude sort of develops, a lot of our followers will tag us in the social media posts. And through that, we're able to reach out to the family, and through mutual contacts, we typically establish an open line of communication, which we did in this case.
They didn't just wander around hoping to find Giovani. They created a detailed timeline based on those text messages, specifically that "Mom, help" text, to calculate exactly where Giovani would have been when he sent it. Using GPS data and the most logical route from Englewood to Mims, they identified a crucial 10-mile stretch along River Road from Winchester to I-75. This wasn't some random area. It was strategically chosen based on evidence. This was a 10-mile stretch of River Road that was very secluded, Lane explained. There were no cameras out here. It's very wooded. There were construction zones out there. There are areas that people could have pulled off to the side of the road and stopped without anybody seeing them. Plus, at 2 a.m. on this road, they had very little traffic. These weren't amateur volunteers stumbling around in the woods. These were professionals using mapping programs that tracked every single step they took, and more importantly, every step they didn't take. They were systematically eliminating areas where Giovani could not be. For 5 straight days, they covered this terrain while also providing something equally important: support for the family. As former law enforcement officers, they could answer the questions that were eating at Bridget Peltier. Why isn't this happening faster? When will more resources be deployed? What should we expect next? Meanwhile, the real investigation was happening. Brevard County recovered the actual vehicle the cousins had been driving. The family voluntarily turned it over, saying, "Take it, do whatever you need to do with it." Crime scene teams went through every inch of that car. There was no evidence of any type of wrongdoing. According to social media posts from family members, Giovani's paternal relatives, the very people he'd been trying to reconnect with, didn't help with any of the searches. While his mother's side of the family was organizing volunteers and bringing people down from North Carolina, the cousins who were last to see him alive contributed nothing to finding him. But then came August 8th, 2025. After days of searching that had found nothing, a family member conducting their search spotted something at the edge of a retention pond near where Giovani had last been seen. It was a body, partially submerged, so decomposed that immediate identification was impossible. The medical examiner's preliminary assessment was that this was Giovani Peltier. But here's what's crucial. No foul play or trauma was found during the autopsy. The cause and manner of death are still pending toxicology results and further investigation. According to detectives, the body had been in that pond for multiple days before floating to the surface. And here's the part that breaks my heart. Prior searches of that exact area by law enforcement and volunteer search teams had found nothing. The official narrative says law enforcement found Giovani's body, but his mother, Bridget, had a very different story to tell on Facebook. "The police didn't find my baby. The investigators didn't find my baby. The dogs didn't. The helicopters didn't. Stop spreading lies. You have no idea. We found my baby, and I will never be the same." That raw pain in those words tells us everything about how this family has been failed by the system meant to protect them. According to the medical examiner, Giovani's body had been in that retention pond for multiple days before floating to the surface. But professional search teams and volunteers had already searched that exact area multiple times. Billy Lane and his team from We Are the Essentials spent 5 days systematically covering every inch of terrain in that vicinity. So either every single professional searcher missed a body in a retention pond, which seems unlikely, or Giovani's body wasn't there when they searched, which means it was placed there later. And here's another detail that's bothering me. The cousins' story keeps changing. First, they told Charlotte County deputies that Giovani was acting erratically before exiting the vehicle. But when they talked to the family, suddenly there was marijuana, paranoia, knife threats, and a roadside confrontation. Why would you give law enforcement a sanitized version of events while telling the family a more dramatic story? That's backwards from how people usually operate when they're trying to cover something up. There's another piece of this puzzle that hasn't gotten enough attention: Giovani's phone. We know it was found in his backpack, abandoned by the roadside. But what we don't know is whether investigators extracted the complete data from that phone before it was found. Modern smartphones track everything: location history, app usage, text messages, call logs, and even deleted content. If Giovani's phone was active during those crucial hours after the cousins picked him up, there should be a digital trail that either supports or contradicts their version of events. The fact that we haven't heard anything about cell tower pings, GPS coordinates, or digital forensics suggests either that the investigation is keeping that information close to the vest, or that they haven't been able to extract useful data from the device. What's made this case even more complicated is the battle playing out online. Family members have been posting accusations and counter-accusations. Armchair detectives have been spreading theories. And in the middle of all this chaos, real evidence might be getting lost. Billy Lane mentioned something crucial in his interview. We also provided support for the family. We were answering questions for the family as former law enforcement officers. You know, why isn't this happening? When will this start happening? And what should we expect? That tells me the family felt abandoned by official law enforcement early on. When professional searchers are having to explain basic investigative procedures to a victim's family, that suggests a serious communication breakdown between police and the people who needed help most. The case has now sparked a Change.org petition demanding FBI involvement. The petition argues that because this case spans multiple counties, involves suspected gang affiliations, and may include interstate elements, federal investigators should take over. More than $27,000 has been raised through GoFundMe to help the family with funeral costs and legal expenses as they continue seeking answers. But here's what bothers me most about this case. We still don't know what happened on that dark Florida road. We have the cousin's story about marijuana and paranoia and knife threats. We have Giovani's desperate texts for help. We have a phone and a backpack abandoned by the roadside. And we have a young man found dead in a pond. What we don't have are answers that make sense. If you received a text from your child at 1:30 in the morning saying, "Mom, help," what would you do first? Would you call them back immediately? Would you call the police? Would you try to track their phone? Because the truth is, most of us would be asleep, just like Bridget was. Most of us wouldn't see that message until morning. And by then, it might be too late. The Peltier family thought they were doing something beautiful, helping Giovani connect with relatives he'd never known. Instead, they're planning a funeral and demanding answers that may never come. I'm Juju Bean, and cases like this are exactly why I tell you to always trust your instincts. Verify the people your kids are spending time with, even if they're family, and never ignore a cry for help, no matter how small it seems. What do you think really happened after Giovani sent that text? Was this a tragic accident? Or is there more to this story? Let's talk in the comments, and please, stay safe out there. Watch out for each other, and remember that family isn't always safe just because they share your blood.